God bless you. Welcome to Berean TV. This is Apostle Robert Jenkins, and we have another session today. We're going to kind of continue on what we did yesterday, but as always on Berean TV, we thank God for everybody. We always ask you to hit that share button and share this on your page. Invite people out, and we just thank God for you. Thank God for your prayers. Thank God for all that you do, your comments, and we just appreciate all that you do. It's a Friday. It's a weekend. Whole lot of things is going on. I've been having some technical difficulties today, Brother Maria. So it's been crazy, but we thank God for it. We want to pick up yesterday of what we talked about church and should you go to church? How should you feel if you're not at a church, you don't have a covering, according to what people say? Is it possible to be connected to God and not go to hell if you don't have a church? And so we're going to deal with a lot of aspects of the church. Is there a purpose for the church? Should we still be a part of the church? Should we stay connected? Should we try to find a healthy church? All those different dynamics. So we're going to give a lot of information today, a lot of clarity, a lot of wisdom, and from our own experiences. I want to say this first from starting out. Thank God for my brother, us doing this together. But let me say this to you. Both of us have pastored churches. Both of us believe in the power of church. We're not coming against God's institution or what God is establishing through the church. But we are dealing with a lot of things that has been anti-Christ, things that have led people into destruction and into captivity. But I want you to know we forward. So even now, a lot of times it seems like we pick on what's wrong versus what's pick on what's right. And one of the reasons why we do that is because if it's right, we don't really need to mess with it. But if it's wrong, no guy comes to your house to fix your refrigerator and tell you how beautiful the color is when it's not working. So his job is to ask you questions that concerning why it's not working. And so that's what we do. We try to bring about change and bring about healthy people and healthy dialogue that allows you to walk into clarity. Okay. So we're going to say a lot of things, and we may say some things that is in your neighborhood that may affect how you see your pastor. You may see your own church in a lot of these conversations, but we need to do that because we wouldn't be real leaders if we left you in darkness, if we left you to that. So we're going to expose some things. So I want to start out by saying, let's start out by tearing down some errors or some things that are destructional. Can you not be connected to a church and still have a relationship with God? Absolutely so. And why is that? Because God never makes his relationship be controlled by a building or organization. You are personal to God. And so that's very important that we must understand that God is relational. This is why the same God that walks with you when you left the church, it's the same God who walked with you before you went into the church. And don't limit God to the building. And so if God can be your Lord and Savior of your life, and he come to give you life, you cannot disqualify the life he came to give you because you couldn't make it to the church. And so sometimes we just got to sit back. Now, that's the truth concerning those who are not involved in the church, that yes, you can have a relationship with God because God is relational. That building was only a means in which you can hear the word of God. You can begin to understand your purpose and identity. But it's many people who have never been a part of the church and they have a strong relationship with God. There's some people who are over corporations and never graduated from high school. They did not finish education, but they're still very educational. There's some people who have never had any high school training, and they still can train you because God has spent time with them through various peoples, through various means. So the church is not the only means in which God is using to deliver his message. That's what you must understand. That's very key, okay? Now, the flip side of that, and then we'll go back and forth. The flip side of that is, do that mean never try to be a part of a church? If God has become relational with me, do that mean that I just can abandon the church altogether and now I can be negative towards the church? No, it don't mean that. It don't mean that, because you can't go against the system that's working for people. Sometimes the system is working outside the church. Sometimes the system is working within the church. So you don't want people to feel who are part of the system, who are learning, who are growing, or who have not decided yet that they care enough about themselves Okay, but you still can't doubt it because a lot of positive things have come out of the church. My first understanding of God came from the church. My first opportunity to be able to play the drums and the piano came out of the church. Many people who have been blessed by my teaching, they started hearing me in the church. So if I criticize, that means I got to destroy all the positive that came out of it as well. Okay, and so we don't want to feel like because you're not part of a church that you never have to be. It could be something that comes out of an organization that can be a blessing to you, and don't miss your blessing because you've already thrown the baby out with the bathwater. Okay, keep it real. You had a relationship with God outside of the church, and thank God for that. But God is not afraid to go in that building either. And don't act like God can't walk in that building or God is not in that building when you come. And so you want it, at the end of the day, it ain't about the building. It's about, did you get God? Whether it's out the building or outside of the building, did I come to understand God more? Am I doing what I'm called to do? And the other side of that, you have many people who are not part of the church and they have a relationship with God, but they're not doing anything with it. So they still not doing anything with their purpose. Okay, and so you out of the church and you dog the church, but you're not doing anything with your purpose ever since you've been disconnected. Then you got people who are disconnected from the church, but you are unhealthy. You are more healthy religiously than you are spiritually. Ever since you left the organization, you just stopped praying altogether. You don't pray, you don't study. So you can say the church was terrible for me, but the world ain't doing you no better. You not going to church is not helping you no better. So we have to look at all the angles of it and see, does it bring you to a healthy place? At the end of the day, are you being conformed to the image of his son? And so that aspect, we'll deal with a lot of aspects. But I'll deal with that aspect, the power of when you're not in the church, don't say you don't have a relationship with God. Don't let nobody take that relationship from you. But just because of that, don't mean you can't never go back to the church. Okay? If you're in the church, that don't mean that you're safe. You can be just as lost in the church, okay, as you are outside of the church. But also, you can be growing in the church. There are people who are growing in the church. So we have to look at it from every individual and be honest in our assessments. I'll start there. Come on, Brother Maria.
That's a good point right there, because I think often we want to throw the baby out with the bathwater, and a lot of people will get information and people can say that I have been known for putting information out against the conscious community as well as against the church. People will call it apologetics when I'm doing it towards Sinetta and the conscious community, but it's divisive when I'm doing it towards the church. But clearly there's some things that we have to understand, and because we bring certain information out about the church, about deep state, everything there's a bootleg. Let's start right there. Everything there's a bootleg. There's a real tree of life and there's bootleg tree of just wisdom. When we start dealing with Israel, it's bootleg Israel out here that's not even transformed. It's gangs. We got gangs running around here. They like Crips, they like Bloods, they just gangs and they use the Bible. Then we have people that are messianic that are Israel, and it's the same thing with the church. We have the church that is the pagan bootleg church that's riding with white supremacy, and we have the true established assembly of God. We're not saying that church is not good. Let's just make this plain right here today. Church is a continuation from the assembly from Mount Sinai. Later on, we see the tabernacle, we see the temple, and later on in Acts, we see that God pours his spirit out upon a body of believers or assembly of believers. So anywhere we gather as individuals, we're the church right here. We are the church. So we don't want to separate that. But in the midst of us.
Are you there? I think you went off. But in the midst of that, what happens is we got things were infiltrated. In the midst of that, things came in, and we have to deal with the infiltration.
Yes. I think I cut out for a second.
Yeah, you did.
No, go ahead, sir. I'm trying to.
And so that's very important that we understand it. And we need people, and this is the problem. We're getting information sometimes from people who are biased, and that's a problem. So people who are anti-church is only dealing with the anti-church message, and the people that are for church are only dealing with the church message. And we have to reach all mankind, so we have to tell the truth concerning that. Okay, and so God is for the church. We are the church. But do we need a place to gather? Absolutely right. We do need a place to gather. Is it good to have a place that's set apart for that level of teaching? Why would it be easier to go to a church building versus going to Denny's and Perkins? And let me bring that out too. When you go into a church, that church was supposed to be a building that's consecrated and dedicated for that level of service. So it is supposed to have no interruptions but what's supposed to come out of that. So when you walk into a church building, why do we need a church building? Because it's consecrated for that reason. So it means when I walk in, I shouldn't have to worry about hearing no James Brown in the background. I shouldn't have to worry about somebody coming in and lighting up a cigarette, because it's been consecrated for that reason. So we need that type of place that's isolated for that. The street ministry is great. We can meet at Denny's, we can meet at Perkins, but sometimes we don't have the exclusion that we should have in our teaching, in our classroom. And so we need to have that. So that could be a positive reason why we should gather at a building, when we have proper leaders who understand their call, proper teachers to understand their call, and why we're coming together and what we're coming to do. We're coming to be assembled, not just to gather, but to assemble. So that's so important that we understand that. So that's for those people who say, well, once I meet God outside of church, why do I ever need to go back? Because your training is not over. See, there's some things that still need to be taught. You need to grow up. There's some things you need to get rid of. There's some accountability that's needed. So that's very important. Okay. Now that don't mean you can't have it outside of the building, because you're going to have it with the church anyway. Even if it ain't a building, somebody, God is going to lead to you, to connect to you, to bring that level of accountability and responsibility. So that's necessary, but don't down it when it comes out of building. In other words, don't get so anti-church that you won't meet unless it's in a Denny's or Perkins, or unless it's at on a vacation, or unless it's on Facebook. No, don't be that. In other words, be open to the leading of the Spirit, and wherever the Spirit leads you and wherever God is talking, be open to receive God, okay? But at the same time, don't close your eyes when you walk in church because God led you there, and act like you don't see what you see. You may still see mess when you go back. You may be at a place that's still messy, but God has assigned you to be there. You got to know that. But the main point I want to make today is, don't ever let a building be the center of your relationship with God. Let it be a vehicle in which God is using, and God can do that in many places. Okay, many places. Okay, so I want to say that. Come on, Brother Randy, back.
Oh no, go ahead. I'm still trying to do something. You can hear me right now?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yep.
I'm trying to switch that audio over. I'm having a little technical difficulties myself.
Okay.
But go ahead. Give me a second.
Okay.
I should be good here.
So I want to talk about that point. Then the next one I wanted to talk about is covering. And this is something that's very sensitive to me, because this is something, let me read it. The problem is people don't know what church body part they're called to. Instead, they join the church because their emotions are being fed. And that's absolutely right. The problem with people is sometimes we don't know the purpose of the body part, and we don't understand that. And that we gotta be honest with that too, is that the leaders have not explained it. We have made church an organization. Many times the demonic activity placed us in a church to control the people and never wanted them to know the right purpose of the church. And so that's exactly right. And we have to be honest that we have used music to get people to join the church. We have used the emotional side of the musicians to be that. So yes, most people have joined the church because of the choir. I've been in leadership meetings and leadership classes, and I heard the leaders say, make sure you get a good praise and worship leader if you want people to come to your church. And so most people are not tied to a church because of the teaching concerning their life and where they should go. They are tied because the choir is here. They are tied because the musicians, and we know that's the truth, and that's something that we have to tear down, because this is why you paying that guy $1,000 to play the organ on Sunday. So even though people are tithing and giving money, $1,000 off the rip is coming to the keyboard player. And then the drummer probably makes about $200, $150, all depends on what city he lives in, and everybody else go less and less. So the piano player makes the most money, then it's a drummer, and if you're a bass player, you probably make $50 or $75, and that has always been the thing that we target to draw people. So most people are a part of the church from the emotional side. That's a fact. And so most of the time it's based upon how charismatic your pastor are, how much he hollers and screams, and the more entertainment in the church. So a lot of people are not a part of the church for growth or for their purpose or for their identity or for to establish what their functioning is in the kingdom. It was all emotional. And you'll know this, that when the praise and worship leader has a fallout with the pastor and he's no longer the praise praise and worship leaders, members leave because the singing ain't like it used to be. We don't have no musicians anymore, and so people leave. Many people, you've come to the church and you've heard great word, but because they had tracks, you said, I don't want to join a church with tracks. And so you don't care how good the teaching was, you got to have music in order for you to become members. So this has become a problem as well. Okay, and for the same problem, you have many people who have come to the church and they saw the emotional side and they saw that there's no real teaching here, there's no real growth here, and so they decided, I'm not going to be a part of this because I see it again. This is emotional and I'm not caught up into the hype. I'm a thinker and you're not going to make me dumb to be part of this church. So they decided not to come, and we have to deal with that too. We have to be honest about all the aspects. Many people are not part of the church because you never presented the real church. You never preached a real message. You never gave a real mission statement. You never told people what the real reason of the church is. And and the people that's there, you have been fooling them for years. It's the same people that's loyal to you, not loyal to God. So we have to be honest with that, okay? And that's key. And we're going to be honest across the board. Now, there's some people who don't want real church. A lot of people ain't left church, not because church ain't bad, but because they don't look for real church. They like religion, and they're going to be a part of church for the rest of their life. And I don't care how much truth we bring, I'm not leaving my church. I love my choir. I love it. I'm a Baptist brand. Baptist, I'm going to die. Baptist, I'm dead. And I'm going to be that. And I love that. You got some churches, they ain't had a pastor in 5 years. And they go on like they don't need a pastor because all they need is Sunday morning in the choir. That's the truth. And I don't care how many things we bring up that's wrong and this deep state. You can say deep state all you want. We coming in. This is the church. You can't wait to come in. You know what I'm saying? And that's real. We got to deal with that as well. Come on, Brother Maria.
We can't wait to come, and hopefully I sound a little better right now. A lot of stuff was touched on. I think when we start dealing with certain things too, we got to be fair. A lot of people are where they are spiritually, because when we say mystically, you got to have that relationship. You have to connect with God, and we were discussing this in the group last night. In all actuality, a lot of this stuff for our spiritual development is on us as individuals growing in God. There's too many believers that don't want to crack the word open for themselves, that don't want to pull away from the television and the cares of life and spend time with God. This has to be a deliberate effort. This has to be a deliberate effort growing with God. We can't put this on all the preachers. We already know it's established fact. If you're going to a church and your church is teaching the depths of the word of God, if your church have multiple classes and discussion groups to help individuals grow, that's extremely important. Some churches just function as group centers. They have a little something for you to do here, a little something for you to do here, and they're just social clubs. That's all it is. But we got to make sure, especially in this hour, that we're taking more responsibility for ourselves, studying the word. A lot of people, if you start studying, praying, and studying that word for yourself, there's a lot of people searching online on YouTube and coming to discussions like this. They get a deeper understanding, and so many of them are shocked, saying, I've been in church all this time, and since I've been watching you and Apostle, it's amazing how much stuff I've learned in just small sessions. Not even going 2 hours, because sometimes we'll go an hour and 45 minutes easy, but just even small sessions. They said, I've learned so much in such a little bit of time, just consistently coming and opening up my word and just comparing certain things that y'all are saying. And it's work. It's work. We have to definitely do work, and it's okay that a lot of this work get done online. A lot of this stuff is just like school. It's just like research. It's just spiritual research, and we're taking time away to spend time with God. But after fellowshipping with God and getting in his word and reading the Psalms and praying, we got to be a hard praying people, especially in this season for deliverance and for discernment. And when we open up the writ and start reading the writ and expounding on it, it's connected with research, and we can do those things on the internet. We have to take responsibility. More and more people are doing that. We have to take responsibility and stop putting it on the people in that building, because there's not too much going on in that building all the time. Like we said, if you go to a good church, it's a beautiful thing, but there's so many people that are quote unquote unchurched. Right. And this is what we're addressing. Come on, sir.
And that's so key. It's so deep. This is something that we should automatically know, because if you send your kids to school, they can have great teachers, but your kids got to do their homework. You know the homework. So you had 12 years of knowing the importance of doing the homework. So don't act dumb when you go to church, because you know when you're in school that it's required for you to do the homework. So all of a sudden when they come to church, you put all responsibility on the pastor when you know that wasn't the case for 12 years of your life. So let's be honest about that. So this is the same thing, but the church got to also make it mandatory for homework. And this is where we come in together. See what I'm saying? Because in school, they got a test time and they have a progress report and they can send it home to the parent and say, your children is getting all F's. And now you as the parent is saying, wait a minute, what do you mean? And they'll show you, she didn't turn in this homework paper. She didn't turn in this homework paper. There's accountability. In the church, is there any accountability in our teaching classes? See, because we can teach a lot of things, but we need to be able to say to you, okay, I just taught you. It's like I should be able to, and Brother Berean, he does this a lot. He'll say, where's my Patreon people at? Give me the answer for this. So-and-so, or give me the research, because he know he taught that. So I taught that, and you're part of these classes. You should be able to pull up some things that I shared with you. He makes them accountable without even saying you're accountable. He'll just say, come on, where y'all at? Y'all should know the answer. Give me the answer to this. Who knows the answer to this? Because he know he taught them that. We should have that same level of accountability towards the people in church. Why? Because I don't want you to just use me as something you like to hear. I'm concerned about your growth. So it's back and forth. You should take the responsibility to study. And I should ask you, did you study? Did you go over John? You know, last week we taught on John chapter 5. Did you go home and look at it? How many people looked at John chapter 5? We should say this in Bible study and say, what did y'all get out of it, of what I didn't teach? Did anybody see something even more deeper than what I taught? To see if they have the gift to go even deeper in the text? That's what we need. It should be like we have call and response songs. I'm a soldier, you say, in the army of the Lord. That's call and response. Well, we ought to have call and response on Bible. John chapter 5, I taught on it. What did y'all get out of it? And it should go back and forth. Very key that we do that. Now, if they don't do that, your own growth should mean enough to you that if my pastor don't do that, I'm going to do it for myself, because at the end of the day, it's my life that's going to be benefited or not benefited from not doing these things. So even though you should have that, you still at the end of the day can't blame him, because that's your destiny. So you have to take responsibility. But it helps when you have people to go back and forth with that. Okay? Come on, Brother.
But I want to say one thing. I only been part of, in my adult life, I only been part of maybe 3 assemblies that I can say. Have you ever gone somewhere though, or what would you say, Apostle, to the person that goes to a church and they're not really getting anything out of it? They go there for the fellowship. They go there because Rich says, forsake not the assembling of yourselves, and just gather together as a body of believers to pray. But they don't really get anything out of it. Do you think that's a good thing or a bad thing? Or we're just, obeying the word, get together and pray as assembly of believers, and I do my own prayer and studying at home. I don't really get anything from the preaching, but I get something from the corporate worship, not the choir, but the corporate worship together.
I think it's a terrible thing, and I think it's a terrible thing from various reasons. I understand, and this is something that we have to talk more about. Listen, you can't take that scripture, don't forsake the assembly, and the only reason you come is to gather, and you're not being assembled, because you've been called to be fruitful, multiply, and replenish. And you have to realize, if the gathering don't bring you into a fruitful place, then you're still not accomplishing the purpose of the gathering. That's so important. But this is the other part. When you're sitting in a place and you're not growing spiritually, you are dying spiritually. That's the danger of it. And so many people, you died in the church by you not growing. You have not, listen, if you sit a plant in any place, if you don't give it any water, if you don't give it any sunlight, you can't say, well, at least the plant is in the house. The plant is dying in the house because it's not getting what it needs from the house. Even when you put a plant in the house, they'll tell you to position it around a window so that the light could get to the plant, because the plant, even though it's an inside, it has to have a certain level of light to continue its growth. And so many times when you sit in church and you're not getting anything that brings life to you, you are getting things that bring death to you. And so what happens is, and then it makes you carnal minded. And so now when real truth come and the bread and the meat come, you have a problem. You spit it out because you're only looking to be entertained. So now it opens you up for other cults to come in, because the entertainment spirit can entertain you in the name of God, and you thinking you're doing a good thing because you clapping your hands, but you don't realize the sound has been switched, and you can't identify the real sound from the false sound because you never got any teaching to ever help your discernment to know that's not what I should be clapping to. That's not what. So now you are plazing mess. Now you're allowing anything to come in, and when you do this, you'll find out that your own carnal life will not be dying, because you never got nothing that brings death to you. So you never had nothing that brings conviction to you, because you just having a good time. And so you have a good time, and you'll say nothing wrong with smoking a cigarette and drinking wine and going to the party, because you were just at church. See, you never got something that woke you up to the things that need to be passed away, the things that need to be died daily. And so you may never know, and you may never pick up your purpose. You may never do what you're called to do. You just go to church. And so your life is going to church on Sunday and just working a 9 to 5 and being a husband, but never walking in your full potential of what God called you to do. And so there's certain things that never come across your mind. There are certain things that you have that you never release to people. There are people who have unlimited potential, but they've never tapped into it because all they do is go to church. Nobody ever challenged their gifts. Nobody ever told them gift placements. And so there's a whole lot of things that come when you just enjoy. And then the ultimate purpose is church is not designed to be a concert. It is not an entertainment system. It is not a place where you come for your flesh to be comfortable. Really, church is about bringing circumcision to your heart. It deals with heart issues. And so if those things have never been challenged, you never walk into your destiny. And most people who do that, your life is not lined up with the will of God. If God would say where you should be, you're nowhere near it. And that's the sad part about it. So that's a danger. Now, what do? If you have a strong relationship with God, I would say pray and ask God to really lead you, because if you have a strong relationship with God, he's going to begin to tell you, stop sitting here. See, God didn't told me to walk out of churches. See, people don't want to believe that. God didn't told me to walk out of them. Get up and go. See,
no, people don't want to believe that. God will never tell you walk out the church. God will never tell you lead a church. And if you think God tell you to lead a church, it's the devil talking to your mind, and you can't discern the voices. And this is what we see. But this is one thing because I don't want to get people. I want to make sure I'm hearing you correctly. Do you think it's the laity, the regular people? When we say laity, you're not a preacher, teacher, pastor. You think the laity in church should challenge the church for better teaching, for more teaching? You think that's biblical, or they should just go leave and find another church, shop another church?
Well, see, I think it's a problem when we make all laity the same, because you got some leaders that are called laity because they haven't stepped into their leader position. So there's some people who know better who sit in the audience. Those people who God has raised up to be mature, you just happen not to be an owner of a church or a pastor of a church, then yes, because truth is where you start having accountability. When God reveals truth to you, then you're supposed to be able to declare that truth. Now, there are sheep in the congregation that are immature. They don't know, so they won't be the ones that push that. Other leadership should do that. The accountability should be sheep among equals. And so there are other apostles and prophets and pastor teachers should make a demand on that. But sometimes God has them in the audience, or God may be pushing you up in the audience to say, look, God is telling me that I should have more. And so if God is leading you that way, and then I would say be open to that. But majority of the time, sheep beget sheep. And so leadership, most of the time, you have to be at a certain place to address leadership problems. And so even when the Bible talks about how you should come to an elder, so there's a right way. Don't let a novice be in a position. Don't let a novice teach. And so those are things. And this is why I have a problem with, and this is why church has become the good old club, because the people who's supposed to be bringing accountability, you letting your boy do what he want to do because your boy letting you do what you want to do. And so people who know better, they're not telling other leaders, look, man, you know that's not right. Listen, I'm a pastor like you're a pastor, and I'm telling you, you're not holding your people accountable, or you're not being accountable to give them the right thing. That's my job as a leader, to be able to know that. And so I got to be able to do that. But a lot of times we have people who are leaders, they just sit in the audience, and for whatever reason, they want to be in disguise. They don't want to take their right. So they'll play as loyalty when you know you're a leader and you know better and you know what he said is not biblical. And you are the one that should walk in the pastor's office and say, I need a minute with you, I need to talk to you, and tell me, why did you teach this and why did you teach that? Because they know that, okay? But other times it should be other leaders. And this is the problem. But this is the system that's been created in church. Most of the time, they see how powerful your voice is before they give you an opportunity. And so what happens is, if you don't meet the control way, then they'll never allow you to even get your license or even have a platform so that you can check other ministers. It's a good old boys club. So I'm not about to even let you in knowing you already came in a little rebellious. I noticed on your first sermon, you preached some stuff that was wrong with the church. So you know what? I need to keep you as silent as possible. So a lot of times it's not accountability, because the real people who can be accountable, they've been kicked out already. They've already been labeled. They've already been marked. So we got to deal with that as well. But sometimes there is some laity. But I'll say this, if you're not strong enough or have not been called to deal with that, you got to deal with what God is telling you, though. That don't mean you should sit there and wait. That means that God will begin to speak to you. Now, God has always made me not afraid of people. I'm not scared of nobody. And so in order to address leadership, you got to not have no ties to them. Many times that's why God will have you walk out of the church, because your voice is not as strong if you in the system, because you need it. I always say, if you need them, you can't lead them. You can't need them. You can't need them. I don't need you. I need God in my life. And that's hard, because we wouldn't talk, you need me. I don't need you. I need God. And so because of that, I'm not afraid to say the truth. I can tell you the truth, and that means I don't preach in your church, and I just don't preach in your church. But I'm at a different level. Now, what if you have people who don't know that? You might not can't handle the things that come along with that, because I want you to know, when you start even approaching some of these things, you will be marked. You think you was marked when you left the church, and he told everybody don't call you. Because you got pastors, they have meetings, and they tell the members that if somebody leave the church, be done with them, ostracize them. They're against the church. This is something this taught. Somebody said, can a person younger than you be an elder? Well, biblically, how we see the word elders and how we deal with the priest and the prophet and how old you had to be, there was an age limit that was tied to certain offices, but that day has changed. Can a person be younger than you and be an elder? Is elder only going to elderly people, or is elder going to seasoned people? Are you elder because you're seasoned? Now, you have to realize that we're dealing with titles, so we got to deal with biblically what the title meant versus denominational what the title meant. In certain churches, elders are usually in the apostolic, so you see elders. When you go to Baptist, you see minister, so you won't see elders. So when we deal with it from denominational, elders just mean a minister that in that denomination, they don't use the word elders, they use minister. So you're a minister in that. Okay, but in the apostolic church, they may call you elder. I used to be called Elder Jenkins because I come from charismatic. So you see more elders in that. Now that's the elder dealing with denomination. Then you have elders in the Bible. Who were the elders in the Bible? Were they the senior citizens, or were they the seasoned? Was there any young man in the Bible who was called an elder and he was young? See, now we got to look at biblically where that word elder come from. And so that's very key. And so I have Brother Maria, he'll probably give you more historical on that word elder, okay? And then there was a time I think you had to be a certain age to be a priest, you had to be a certain age you had to be a certain age. When we deal with the Old Testament, I believe there was a certain age. You just couldn't be a priest at 17, 18. But I know he'll give you more clarity on exactly what that age limit were in the Bible.
Book of Numbers, I think it's 30 years of age. That's how come you can see the book of Mark when it opens up, and Jesus being about 30 years of age came to get baptized by John. You couldn't really be a priest at 20 years old and stuff like that. Somebody else asked something else. What is a 501? The 501c3 is like a tax status, a tax exempt status that religious organizations, not just churches alone, but religious organizations can have. So when they're building, when they're buying, they're doing things from Home Depot or whatever, you'll get tax exempt status on that. People can write checks and donate to the church, and they can say that they gave to a nonprofit. If you're a legit 501c3, they can put that on their tax return that they gave to nonprofit organizations. A lot of rich people do that. They give to, any type of nonprofit for tax purposes. So that's what the 501 is. But some people think when you start dealing with a 501 that the government's limiting you in your speech. Surely things are changing as far as hate speech and speech against the government. And some people think that if you have a 501, you can't freely speak everything that's taught in the Bible because clearly society is against the Bible. People want to run around here, Apostle, and say that, oh, well, they gave us the Bible to control us. Ain't too many people out here obeying the Bible. The Bible talking about don't fornicate, don't murder folk, and just getting they getting their gun clapping on, they fornicating, divorcing, and remarrying, they doing what they want to do.
Right.
So that thing that people's putting out here, they gave us religion to control us, they gave us the Bible to control us. That's something I definitely don't agree with. Anything else, sir? Let me see.
I want to talk about the 501c3 because, again, we want to deal with how things infiltrate the church. A lot of people became aware of the 501c3 based upon that people wanted to give them money. And the people who wanted to give them money, they wanted to write it off. So the rich people wanted to write off that money so they don't have to give that money to the government. And so now a lot of times what happens is I'm going to use the church as a way to hide my money. And because the church, we don't care about them, we took that money. We got that 501c3. Yeah, you can use me to hide your money. You don't want to pay a certain amount of money to the government. I got a 501c3. Give us that money. The church took that 501, not because they really was concerned about the soul of that person, but only about that money. So that don't make the 501c3 wrong. That is make a lot of the motives that we have to be honest. A lot of leaders, you didn't get the 501c3 because you was led by the Holy Ghost. You got the 501c3 because you found out that certain people will give you that money if they could be able to write it off. So you got that 501c3. So let's deal with that spirit that came into the church. Another time, churches don't want to pay taxes either. Now, you tell the truth. You teach that tithes is a taxation of the kingdom, but you don't want to pay taxes of this kingdom. And so you use the 501c3. Watch this. So you can write off stuff and say it's non-profitable when it's all kind of profit coming from the church. But you say it's a non-profitable organization and hiding behind the 501. So now you're using the 501c3 for the wrong reason too. So to be honest, and this is how infiltration come in on different things, your motive behind it, okay? And so that's a very key thing. And so we have to look at that. Then we have to look at a lot of times when it was first started out, they had more to say so with the 501c3. It is changing a lot too. But when it first came in, all depends on your organization. If you had, like, say you had a facility where you help girls get off of drugs and alcohol, and you got a 501c3, people were donating that. They were telling you couldn't put certain crosses up in their rooms. And they were limiting certain religious things because you accepted that 501c3. You have to have a board to have a 501c3. You have to have a board. There's a whole lot of stuff that comes along with a 501c3. But the thing I'm dealing with is, I don't care what it is, be very careful of the spirit that he can hide behind, that can come into the church and change our mindset concerning the gospel, our mindset concerning people. So we have to be very careful what we embrace, even if it looks like it's a blessing to us. Because some things is a curse hiding behind a blessing. And because we so material driven, it's easy for us to get consumed. And so let's be honest about that. And so now you got everybody writing stuff off. You writing off all the instruments, 501c3. We ain't got to pay taxes on the organ. We ain't got to pay taxes on the piano, all that type of stuff. But it's all kind of money that's being profit. And so now you have to lie. Now we got a lying spirit hiding behind 501c3. And this is how the deep state comes in, okay? And you better believe they are looking for ways to come in. So if I can come in through the 501c3, then I'll come in through that. If I come in through you being a bishop, I'll come in through that. If I come in through your organization, I'll come in. This is how they creep in unaware. But everybody thinks it's now. Well, it's a non-profit organization. You making money, quit playing. Now you've been saying you're a non-profit for 20 years. You mean tell me for 20 years y'all have never made a profit? See, we got to be honest.
Yeah, it's a lot going on with that, and like everything, it's good in some churches. Plenty of churches have used it for good, and now I think the government's trying to crack down so people are more, because they want to look at the church records, look at the church books, especially in light of this whole prosperity gospel. It was so much stuff going on, so those are things that happen. The church get offended when you speak on that, but that's just reality. But one last thing I just wanted to ask you: there's a lot of pastors out here. They done. They ready. They on the verge of just giving up. They're done. And And some people would say, even by giving laity or regular people information, or regular people coming and asking certain things and questioning pastors, it's beating them down even more. What do you think? What do you say to that? Because there are some pastors out here that's stressed out. There
Well,
are some pastors out here that's on medication. There's also some pastors out here that got to talk to a psych because the church is just driving them. Because church folk, because you know you people are hard. Some of you people are hard right here. What do you say about those pastors? Because some pastors may say, "Well, I don't do any of that stuff," and these people, we living in the shoot the pastor down age. We don't trust the police. We don't trust the judges. We don't trust the teachers. We don't trust the CDC, Dr. Fauci. We don't trust the preachers. We just living in that atmosphere right now. That's the attitude right now. What do you say to the pastors that's really doing right? You can say what you want. We're the salt of the earth.
Yeah,
what do you say to them pastors?
Exactly. We have the accountability, and you're absolutely right. When people come to you, everybody who comes with you with a question don't have the right intent. And so you have to be able to distinguish between a person asking me a question and really want to know the truth, and somebody asking me a question to prove that they're right and I'm wrong. You have to understand that, because a lot of times people don't come. But I don't want to lose the good people in the midst of the bad people. So I have to have wisdom to be able to know that as a leader. I have an obligation. I can't be upset as a teacher if a student asks me a question. Well, I'm the teacher. That's the reason why I'm there. Many times, and this is what we messed up in ministry, we have made more ministry about money, so people don't take the real burden of ministry for serious. So when real questions come, now we're panicking, and it's driving us to a place, and it'll burn you out. It really will, because you never prepared yourself for that level of ministry. But that's what you're supposed to be in the first place. So sometimes we have to revamp and review ourselves and say, you know what? I didn't become educated as I should be educated to deal with the questions that come with this office. It comes with this office. At the same time, I got to realize that everybody who comes to me don't have the right intent, and having the wisdom to know how to deal with that. But don't get rid of the good people because I'm tired of the bad people. I got to know how to handle that. You may have 3 children, 2 obey, 1 is stubborn. You got to know how to deal with the one that's stubborn, but don't let the one that's stubborn mess it up for the other 2 who will fall in line with you. You got to know how to raise them all. We got to know how to raise Cain. Cain, God didn't let nobody kill him. You got to raise him. You can't kill him. And so we got to deal with that. And so you got, every church got a Cain in it. Every church got a Judas. Every church got a Doubting Thomas. Every church has this. If Jesus had 12 and one was a devil, how many members do you have? Okay, so count how many devils you have. And Jesus dealt with it. And Jesus dealt with Judas just like he dealt with anybody else. See, so you have to know how to handle that and have the wisdom to do that. But do not abort your calling, and do not abort us having answers, because guess what? The world is growing in this wickedness. We can't leave these questions unanswered, because if you don't answer them, somebody will. See, another religion will answer. They're not afraid of these questions. And guess what? They've been prepared for it. Matter of fact, they may be the one who gave your member the question to ask you. This is not even coming from them. This could be coming from another influence that say, ask your pastor this. Many people say, well, ask Brother Berean this, ask Apostle Jenkins this. Everything we put up on the screen ain't always positive. It's really to say, let me see what he knows. Let's see how far he can go. Let me see if he really understands it. I already believe this about this. Let me see if he know my answer. That's a lot of times the case. But a lot of times when I'm explaining, the people who ask the question, that's not who the answer is for. It's for the person who didn't ask the question that said, I had that same question.
That's right.
Thank you for helping me. So I got to still give the truth because somebody's listening. And somebody needs that. So that's the case. So, but a lot of pastors need retreats. A lot of pastors need vacation. A lot of you've been burnt out. You need a place to be able to be poured into. One of the problems with leaders is who preaching to you. Most preachers know how to serve, but they don't know how to be served. Can't nobody serve you. You don't believe in nobody's teaching. Can't nobody teach you nothing. Can't nobody empower you. So now you saying you burnt out because you didn't let other ministers pour into you. You can't be the only one that's always talking. You got to eat sometime. Where you eat at? Because you're always serving. You're always preaching. But you never sit down and eat. And who table do you eat from? Who pours into you so that you won't get burned out? Because there's a lot of people that's not your lane. You can't do every lane. This is a team. It takes a village to raise a child. So a lot of times you got burnt out because you tried to operate in the old pastoral rights. This is my church. I'm the pastor. You can never do it with that mentality. So now you come because you got students that are called to be, watch this, in the apostolic. So their deep understanding based upon their gift is going to make them ask certain questions. Your questions come from your well. And so a lot of times it all depends on what God is leading you to your questions. Babies ask baby questions, but adults ask adult questions. See, we want to make everybody kids, but you got some people, they grown in church.
Grown folk.
35, they got 3 or 4 kids. They ain't no dummy. You got to give me some real answer. You can't give me no Humpty Dumpty sat on the wall. I know that worked for grandma, but that ain't gonna work for me. I have a PhD. I have 2 degrees, and I'm not gonna run a company in the world and come to church and be dumb so you can be the pastor. Uh-oh. See? And so a lot of times our problem is not the questions, but your real calling is being challenged. Sometimes that's
oh man, that's a lot right there. You ain't lying about that. And this is what it is. And I've seen individuals go ask your pastor this, go ask your pastor that, because and it's draining on some people. But just ministry is stressful. I don't know. Pastoral work is very hard work, just dealing with people. Yeah. All right, y'all. I'm back in town now. I'm back in town. I got to get up out of here. We got some stuff. School starts soon. I'm getting ready to go across the street after I grab me a coffee. Come on, Pastor. Anything in closing? I got 3 minutes.
Good, man. Thank everybody for coming. We know you got to go to work. Keep listening. We're going to pick up on this again Monday, because I think we need to talk about this, because this is a major problem. So we don't need to rush. We'll take our time and go through some other scenarios that may have happened in church. I want to deal with the people who've been raped in church, or the people who lost their parents in church. I want to deal with a lot of problems that maybe do not face church. I want to have some comments from people who said, this is why I embrace the Hebrew Israelites, even if I was a member of the church. I want to talk to you and see what was it that made you turn? What made you give up the Bible? What made you re-question God? What did you learn in church that they said differently that you consider what they said? Because we have to have those conversations too, to know where we lack it. We need to know where the leak is in the house. There's a leak in the house.
There's a leak in the house. There's a leak in the house.
We need to find the leak. Okay, and find out why churches have become like McDonald's. They have a great open door, but a back door policy. Nobody closes the back door, and so it becomes, it's just everybody coming in and going out. Yes. I was a part of church, but no longer part of church. What is it that we don't know how to close that back door to keep people connected to a training place or place? So let me
okay, come on.
I'm in the prayer. Father, I thank you for your anointing. Thank you for clarity. Thank you for what you're doing, God. We give you praise in all things. Bring us through this teaching to transformation power, that we can begin to be renewed in our minds and walk in the image of who you are. We thank you, Lord. In Jesus Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Okay, y'all, I'm going. I got to run. Take care.